You both have mentioned the book Good to Great as being influential in your careers. And, as I love that book too. And as I look back at it, it's gotten a little bit dated, but I think that a lot of the fundamentals are still true. Jim Collins also wrote another book called Built to Last.
Great book too.
Also a great book. And in that book, it talks about the importance of, it gives some examples of companies that really were built around the personality of a leader. As I recall, I think like Jack Welch from General Electric was one of the examples where the company flourished under him, and when he left, it didn't. And so, in this podcast, we've talked a lot about, not to build you up too much, Jeff, but the importance of you to this transaction and to this transition and to the company. So, learning from Jim Collins' books, what's the plan? So that's great that Jeff's here. Jeff's a visionary, partnering with you, Kraig, on the strategic side. I like that comparison that you made. But what are you putting in place for this company to be there in, 5 years, 10 years from now? Jeff, one day you will retire, no time soon, but what are you putting in place? And as a corollary follow-up, private equity companies are not known for holding companies for a long time. So where do you see things going, both for a company really foundationally built around a visionary of one person with a great team and owned by private equity that, at some point they're going to flip the company at some point. I mean, that's what private equity firms do.
100% certainty someday Francisco Partners will not own this company. We
Absolutely.
may be public. We may spin the company public. We may take it private with some management, but with 100% certainty, it's true. I think there's a couple things. One is actually very early on, Jeff and I were chatting about this, because when you put yourself in Francisco Partners' shoes, when we go to buy Pioneer and you're doing the due diligence, and I listened to a bunch of podcasts. I listened to the podcast he did with you, et cetera, et cetera. You go out in the marketplace, you talk to customers. Jeff's a very provocative personality in the space. As Francisco Partners, you go, what do we do if Jeff gets hit by a bus next week? Well, if Jeff gets hit by a bus next week, we get problems. But what we don't talk a lot about is the great team right behind Jeff. We probably should do a better job doing that. I think there are two things that I would highlight. And very early on, I actually asked Jeff that same question. Like I said, Jeff, 5 years from now, you may or may not want to be doing this. You may want to go do your next startup. I've got a responsibility to really think about that. And you've got a responsibility because you've built a great business, and you only get to do that a couple times in your life. And I know from talking to Jeff, because I think he thinks about the same thing that I do. That's a really important, prideful thing. You want the company that you built to continue to perpetuate beyond your time with it. So we got to think about that. Number one, the area you mentioned very early on, where Jeff and I's relationship, which has been really terrific, and I also think he and I will debate a lot, which I think will be core to us being successful. If we're not, people should really worry. But one of the things, Jeff will talk a lot about people over process. And I think that's very true to how Jeff has built the company. I'm very much people and process. And I think part of the way you build the last as you continue to grow is you've got to do both, but you've got to have really great talent. And I think the answer to the question is someone who just came in kind of as the outsider, observing and learning from the Pioneer business as we were trying to think about the investment, is talk to Jeff's leadership team. It isn't just Jeff. He's got a brilliant team that we've got to make sure we're developing and continuing to invest in, would be my other answer. Jeff?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% there. So I have a great group that's been with me, some of them the whole time. The girl over customer service was one of my students. She's a programmer who went on to get her MBA. She's amazing. So you just, they would not have purchased the company had it just been a Jeff Key show. So there is depth in it. There's depth that we want to continue to develop. And they've got a great group to help us do that. So super, super talented group that they have. And I think we're all going to school, and it's going to be exciting. To me, again, Doug, I know you had some hesitation in doing this because you didn't want this to be a powder puff piece, but I really appreciate you doing it. I know you're a busy guy. Again, thank you for all the work you did on the Supreme Court case. That's incredible. I know you do way more than that with lots of wins for independent pharmacy, and appreciate it. And I'm sincere about our relationship on steroids. I know we do a lot of stuff together, probably kicked off with, I think Marcia and I came to see you guys about 4 or 5 years ago and set up there, but we really cannot do this by ourselves. The whole concept of not doing this by ourselves is why we went with RedSail, and we can't do this without really working close together with the other people who really care about independent pharmacy.
Well, we agree with that 100%, and I think this has been good. Both the podcast you guys did with me a couple months ago, and then this podcast for getting to know each other a little bit from a personal level. I think that's been good. Kraig, it's a real pleasure to get to meet you, and just for both of you, to the extent I was able to find some background research on you, that helped me get to know you as a human. Yeah. Which is good. I think that's always good to know each other on a human level. So, yeah, we can't do it by ourselves. Whether it's RedSail or NCPA, it's got to be. Any one of us is too small to do it ourselves. So,
if I can help you, just don't hesitate to call. We want to do this together.